across large distances in a very safe and reliable way. So what smart metering represents to BC Hydro is a key step in our program of modernizing the grid. From a program perspective, there's 4 major pieces to the BC Hydro smart metering program. At its highest level, what we are doing in our program, and we do have close to 700 people actually working on the program at this point. What we are doing is modernizing the measurement and communication aspects of our grid. Other projects in BC Hydro are working on the wires, the generation, and dams. So you might have heard of some of the other projects, the transmission line, the ILM or the interior of the Lower Mainland. There's other projects that are going on in the company which are about upgrading the grid itself, but our role is to upgrade the measurement aspects. 4 major components to it. We are replacing the single function meters that are currently in service with an end-to-end metering system. So the meter that's coming around right now, it actually has a lot of capability in its own right to deliver business functions, but it also plugs into the system. So it's collecting information on an hourly basis, and it's sending that information through a network, eventually making its way back into BC Hydro, where that information now becomes available to all the business functions that we need. So we are implementing the meters, we're implementing a lot of new business systems in order to support that whole end-to-end view. So it's about the metering system. It's also about a theft protection program. And so theft detection is the purpose of what we're doing, but what's included in that scope is more meters, but now it is meters on the utility side, is feeder meters, transformer meters, and essentially the bottom line is we want to be able to measure, we need to be able to measure the flow of power as it comes from a substation through to a distribution transformer through to the consumption out of premise. And we cannot do that today. Today, BC Hydro's system, the electricity system, is very blunt. We know how much power we generate, and we know how much ultimately is used, but we don't know a lot in between. So we end up putting a lot more power out on the lines than we need to in order to make sure that we deliver enough. We end up putting it at a much higher voltage, where it's much more brute force to keep it in the right voltage than we need to. We don't even know if you're out. We have no way of knowing if you're out of power at your premise until you call us. So we are really quite deaf, dumb, and blind when it comes to the granularity of what is happening with the power of the system. So the theft detection part of our program is adding more meters onto the utility side. The third part of our program is in-home feedback tools. I think this is probably the aspect of our program that's gotten a bit more public profile. And this is making tools available to consumers on your side of the wall, in your businesses and in your homes, so that you can see what your energy consumption looks like, and you can make choices on how to moderate. And I think you were asking a question earlier, and there is a slide that goes into it later, but I'll do it now. BC Hydro is doing 2 things on the in-home feedback front. We are building a web-based portal, which will be available next April of 2012, available to every single customer on the system. You'll have to enroll in the program, you'll have to sign up to make sure that it's you and that your password is protected and highly secure. But if you choose to take advantage of that, and it's at no cost, what you'll see is hourly information off of your grid, what we've collected off of your grid. You'll see hourly over time. We hope to make power smart type tools available to people, things like what's your greenhouse gas footprint on the consumption that you have, how do you compare with your neighbors, how would you compare with another home of typical size and usage as your own. More importantly, how long before you hit tier 2 rates. Some tips if you were to switch off your lights, 5% more, how much could you save on your energy? So we're trying to make it an interactive, highly informative website to help customers understand what they're doing with their power and what they can do to help control that. So that will be available to everyone, and that is the hourly information we collect. The other thing we're doing is enabling for consumers to make choices of tools that you might want on your side on the wall. So things like this would be in-home display devices, programmable thermostats, home energy management systems, programmable appliances. There's a whole world of the retail world of products and services that people can buy. It's your choice. You choose whether you want it or not. But you can, we are making it possible for you to enable that to the meter, and in this case, you have real-time information about what's happening in your home. Really need to be clear, Hydro never has access to that information. We don't capture it, we don't store it, we don't know what you're doing on your side of home. So that's the third part of our scope, that's the in-home display device. And then the fourth part of our scope is the grid and updating some communication capability on the grid. So the bottom line of all of that is two key things. One, today's grid is very one-way. We generate power here, we flow it through our lines, we flow it through a meter, and then it's done. If you don't use it, it's not stored, it's wasted. It's very one-way. And we don't have a lot of information. With smart metering, we are adding almost 2 million eyes and ears to the grid. We will have a lot more granular information about what's happening with the power. How much power is being used, how much voltage is being used, we're capturing 10 to 12 different measures of power quality. We have a much better idea of what's happening with that power, and therefore we can manage it better. Number one, and number two, we are enabling the two-way measurement of the flow of power. So all those things that people want to be able to do, like buy an electric vehicle, and if BC Hydro needs electricity, sell it back to us. Now we can let you do that. We can enable it, we can measure it. Those meters have 6 registers in them. We can measure up to 6 different flows of power coming in or out of the home, and we can do things with that. So that's the bottom line out of all of that scope. I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits from a program perspective. The business case for BC Hydro Smart Metering Program delivers $1.6 billion worth of benefits. When you net off all the costs associated with it, the costs to implement, the costs to operate, it will take a bit more to operate, it nets out to over $500 million positive benefit. What that means to every one of us is that it's $500 million that is helping to reduce the rate on pressure. Smart metering is one of the few, if not the only program on the way right now that is actually reducing rate pressure, not adding to rate pressure. And the best part about it is 80% of those benefits come from the utility side of the house. So if not a single one of our customers changes their behavior in any way to help conserve energy, 80% of those benefits are still realized by the utility. So it is a good news story from that perspective. The major places where we're going to get those benefits from are in better outage management, theft detection, where we're losing a tremendous amount of power, reducing electricity waste on our side, enabling customers to conserve on your side, and then a better use or optimization of the distribution assets that we use. This particular slide, which might be quite hard to see, talks a little bit about outage. Today, we don't know if you're out. With smart meters, they have a capability, they have a battery power pack on them. When the power is out, that meter sends a signal to a control center down in the lower mainland. We call it the last gasp signal, and it tells us that it's out. If we see just one meter out, we know you're probably doing some construction. But if we see a bunch of meters starting to go out, we know that there's an outage. We know where it started. We can get the crew proactively there before anybody starts calling. We still people can call us because they often have information, and that's helpful. But now we know there's an outage. We start to work on it quicker. We can go straight to where it started to occur, and we can fix it. But even more importantly than knowing there's an outage and knowing where to start, it helps us, the meter, when it's got power flowing again, has a first breath signal. And what that tells us, it allows us to find what we call nested outages. So often in storms or in poor weather, we'll have multiple breaks of our line. And so today, the crews fix the power, they see the porch lights are back on, they drive back. And there's still a nested outage. We'll get a call 4 hours later. When are you guys coming to fix my power? Only then we know that there's still more premises out. So with the meters giving us that information that they're working and they're flowing the power through, we now can spot when there's a nested outage. This is a big problem on the west coast of Vancouver Island. For example, Fort Alberni, the crews are coming from Nanaimo. So if that crew is already going back to Nanaimo and there's a nested outage, that's another 4-hour turnaround time. That's a lot of time that customers are without power. Never mind the truck rolls, the overtime, the bring up employees out and storm right up the water. So outage is a very significant aspect of our program. I wanted to talk a little bit about theft. And these pictures probably don't do it justice, so please do pick up a copy. First and foremost, electricity theft for BC Hydro is a public safety issue. We have always had a significant amount of theft of power, but we've usually seen it as meter tampering. Your old meters, I'll tell you guys now, because you won't be able to do it very much longer, besides this question. Old meters are quite easy to tamper with. You can turn it upside down and it runs backwards. So it's not how much you're actually consuming. You can put a magnet on it, that'll slow down the wheel. And that you're stealing power when that happens. People will pull it off the wall, they'll put jumper. You can put a jumper on the back of the meter, plug it back in, and you are diverting power. We're finding, even though we've got people know we're coming, we've already found 25 incidents of meter-based theft as we're starting to replace the theft program. However, it's quite easy to tamper with the meter, but in 2006 what we started to see was a dramatic increase in the amount of theft that is coming right off the wires themselves. And so now we've got ourselves a public safety problem, and here's some photos to illustrate it. Dramatic increase in the number of house fires that we are seeing around the province. If you talk to any of your fire marshals, they'll tell you. Because there's too much power flowing into these homes that we don't know about. So dramatic increase in fires. Dramatic increase in what we call premature transformer failures. This is a 3-set transformer with the naked eye. That same transformer, looking through an infrared camera, I don't know if you can see it, but this particular one is what we call burning hot. There is so much electricity going through there that that transformer is not sized correctly for the amount of power that's going through that, because it's being stolen and we don't know about it. When you have a transformer like this, here's what happens. It explodes, it's oil-based, there's hot burning oil that will go around in the heat. So that's a no problem. It's also a cost issue. Every one of those things costs somewhere between $800 and $1,000. And we have our business case was based on 100 of them failing prematurely, but our crews are telling us it's closer to 200 to 300 now, just from the load that we can't plan for and manage. So we have that problem. But the most egregious issue is the tapping directly into the line. So what we're finding is the back of our poles are carved out. There's wires run off the back of the poles connecting directly to the transmission lines, and power is being diverted. But that's a live pole. And these are live poles in our communities. Our crews, when they go on pole inspections, they now, first responders, our employees, and the public, they now have a lot more live electricity situations in their own communities. And that is our responsibility. Electricity can be a dangerous product, and it's our job to keep it safe and keep it reliable. So, first and foremost, that's a public safety issue for us. It is also a financial issue. At this point, we are losing $100 million or more of power a year. That is what every one of us right now is helping to subsidize in our rates. So, quite often we'll get the, grow-ups, and it's not our job. We are not a law enforcement agency. It is not our job to identify grow-ups or shut down grow-ups. It is our job to identify where electricity theft is occurring and take steps, which we can under the Electricity Act and Ontario, to shut down when power is being stolen, regardless of what purpose it's being stolen for. So, that's the theft story. The other one I wanted to talk about a little bit is just a little graphic which illustrates the waste of electricity. BC Hydro wastes a lot of electricity right now. We have to put too much power on the line, and the physics of electricity transportation is that the more electricity you put on the line, the more you lose. So if we put less on, we lose less. We have a savings. We've also put less on, and the whole magic of this is the ability to manage voltage and manage power quality as it is being transmitted through the system. We put so much on, if you don't use it, it flows right on out and it's gone. And so we're wasting. So this is where a tremendous amount of benefit comes on the utility side, because now we can regulate it a lot more carefully. I already talked about the in-home feedback tools, so I kind of made that. This next slide, just very mindful of time here. It's just reinforcing the point that there is some misinformation out there about how much information BC Hydro will now have. We're still, the meter will only have consumption information, how much electricity is being consumed on an hourly basis. It wakes up every hour, takes a little snapshot of what the consumption is, and stores it on a chip inside the meter. There is no personal information stored on the meter. There is no way of knowing who you are from what's on that meter. So we collect hourly information, and we're interested in that hourly information on an aggregated level. There is, and I think a big part of why smart metering became a part of the Clean Energy Act is because there are tremendous environmental benefits associated with the benefits of smart meters. When you save electricity, you're not building dams, you're not buying dirty power from other jurisdictions. And so there was a lot of environmental benefits. And just, I won't drain this one, but the key things I'd like you to know is with the reduced pressure to buy or build power, we expect to save enough electricity to power the city of Campus on an annualized basis, just from having that better quality information. From the customer's perspective, pilot study after pilot study has found that consumers, when they're given information, they can save 5 to 15% on average of their power. The best case we've ever seen is actually a study that was done in Washington, D.C. It was done for a low socioeconomic group. They saved on average 40% of their power. They were motivated to do so, of course, because of their economic circumstances. But what they found was that they had that information, they were able to do simple things and save power. So we know that customers, if they choose to, can save on their own energy use. And again, the key thing is all about being able to enable the two-way flow of electricity. With the two-way flow of electricity, communities can use biomass, wind, water, whatever's open to them. They can develop microgrids, they can power themselves, they can use hydro as an open flow. So, those are some of the benefits. I wanted to maybe address some of the questions or conversation that's out there. One of the big things that's out there is this whole issue of radio frequency and smart meters. So I wanted to just give you some data about that. Number one, the meters are equipped with radios. They're equipped with 2 radios. One is a field area network radio. It's 1 watt. It's very low power. It does not work in major bursts. And in fact, when the signal leaves the meter, it's actually already being converted into an analog signal. It's a digital meter, and it operates digitally inside the meter. But when the signal leaves the meter, it's an analog signal. So it's a low watt radio. And its power output is 2 microwatts per centimeter squared. It's 1/100th the power of a cell phone. It is also less than 50% of the strictest standard in the world that we could find. And I'm going to get technical on you guys for just a second. We are governed by Health Canada, like any business, anybody operating in Canada, and subject to Safety Code 6. Safety Code 6 establishes the radio frequency standard for 900 megahertz range, which is where our meters operate. And just remember this part, at 600 microwatts per centimeter squared. There are people who are concerned and believe that Health Canada's standard is too high. You might recall the Green Party and other groups have called for a stricter standard. They called for the standard that has been implemented in major parts of Europe, Germany in particular. Germany's standard is 450 microwatts per centimeter squared. We are at 2. We were at a meeting in Victoria, and some of the groups in Victoria asked us to go and find the strictest standard that we could possibly find. So we did. We looked around the world, and we found it in Switzerland. It's based on the precautionary principle, and it's 4 hospitals and schools, so areas that were deemed more sensitive. And that standard is 4.5 microwatts. So 600, 450, 4.5, our meters are 2. So we are very comfortable that the profile is a very low profile. That's from a strength perspective. Strength, duration, and distance, or proximity, are the three things you look at when you're looking at a radio frequency profile. So I've talked to you about strength. From a frequency perspective, our meters will be transmitting information 3 times a day. We've configured it that way. We don't need that information more frequently than that. So the meter will collect it hourly, and 3 times a day it wakes up and sends that hourly information out to us. It also has it just makes sure it's still connected into the mesh every half hour. In total, all communication that that meter is going to do amounts to less than a minute a day. And that can range from 48 times to perhaps a couple hundred on a day when there's a lot of outages and there's a lot of back and forth signals going on. It is a low frequency. It's low frequency, it's low power. And then its proximity, the meter is on the outside of the house. As soon as you get more than 20 centimeters away, the strength of the signal drops exponentially. Once you are more than 3 meters away from the meter, you cannot even measure it. There is no device out on the market today by any agency that can measure the strength of output from your meter once you're more than a couple of feet away. So I just wanted to give you some of those facts. There's also an information sheet out here. We have had that independently shown by the BC Centre for Disease Control. That report is on our website. Stay tuned, this next week we'll be posting some more reports. We've contracted a company called PlanetWorks. They're an independent telecommunications consulting firm, and they sanction or certify for Health Canada. And they have done a report for us on a single meter and a meter back for 10 meters, and the results are posted. You probably really will not be able to see this. This is Health Canada. That's the safety standard at 100%. And this is the results from that report. It's a graph. It shows the background noise as well as the meters. You go to the next slide, Harper. That shows it a little bit more granular. Here's the background noise and the simulating being out in a community, and here's what the meter is doing. You can see that it's very low. It's less than half a percentage point of Health Canada's safety standard. And this is where Wi-Fi comes in, and this is where cellular phones come in. So that report will be available, and anybody can access that. And I think I'm probably out of time. I think I've covered most of the materials anyways.
Well, let's have a big hand for a very well-informed speaker. I don't have questions, Fiona, so I'm just going to sort of monitor in here in case they carry on, and I've got to leave today and be at another appointment. So, yes.
So I was a lot more interested in voice. And
we didn't get to the question part yet.
Rather
Joyce.
than part.
We didn't get to the question part yet.
Oh, I thought you said yes.
I said we were going to. I'll still do my thing.
I'll wait.
I'll let you watch.
All right. But you'll be first. I know I got some ladies over here on this side. I think they wrote down everything you said. Very informed.
That was really pretty good.
They're very informed. We're very lucky to have them in our community. We love them. They're ours. Yeah, so I sort of had this conversation with you when we got here today. And you know, I mentioned to you, both Harper and Fiona, but you know, at City Hall we're getting a huge amount of letters. They just keep coming. I don't know, we add them all up, they're huge, but they come every day. Every day. 3, 4, and they're all different people, and they're coming locally, non-locally, etc. And I think my own feeling is that when we had this discussion, and you said, yeah, probably we can come back, is that people actually feel that there was no consultation. It was just BC Hydro decided, and that's what happened, and that's what we got. Instead of spending some extra time and money, breaking up into groups and going into the different towns and cities, in part, you have the big cities you break up and have these discussions and tell people what you're doing and why you think it's great, and listen to them and just have that input. And I don't think that was able to happen. For that is probably the outcry. And at UBCM, it was a huge issue. When we were there, and Councillor McNaughton, he was at that session. Was any of the other councillors at that session? Were you there, Maggie, at the part of it? And it was. Can you tell us just a little bit quickly on sort of your gauge on what went on at UBCM on that issue?
I can just give you my opinion. I think that people are
concerned about process. The Clean Energy Act was passed and it avoided any public consultation whatsoever. And same as the HST was just foisted on us, people liked the opportunity to have some input, and it's going to avoid it. And I don't know if that was government's decision or BC Hydro or done in consultation, but I think some public consultation would go a long way towards the smart meters being accepted for what they look like they are. All we need to do is do the research, which you're doing now after the fact. So I think that's the major concern, that hopefully the truth will come out about whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. But the process is flawed.
Thank you. So, I mean, that was just a little bit that I had offered, and, you know, not that I'm guilty of doing things wrongly myself at times and such, but just thought we pass that along. So having, you know, had my little say, and thanking you very much both for coming, and it was a great, great presentation, and you really know your stuff. I'm going to start questions with Joyce.
Can I,
Yes.
you said it as a statement, but
Sure. Yes.
there's sort of some questions in there. Let me take that and then Joyce. I'll know your name now. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting comment, and I think here's a few data points I'd share with you, not to be defensive or anything like that, just to actually really share with you. This smart metering is a key initiative for utilities around the world that are modernizing their grid. And typically, and it's business as usual for a utility. We don't actually go out and consult on, should we do this maintenance program? Should we replace these reclosers? We want to upgrade these transformers to a different type. It is not a normal business practice in our business to go and publicly consult on things that are our everyday business. So it wouldn't have been a natural thing for us to think about. You know, because we replace 40,000 meters a year right now. We're upgrading things all the time. We're actually subject to a federal body called Measurement Canada. And Measurement Canada sets the directives on the accuracy of the meter, the information you have to make available to consumers, all those kinds of things. So could we have, maybe should we have, perhaps, you know, hindsight's always great. But it wouldn't have been a natural thing for the utility to think about, because really, for many years, we've been working on this program, and it's business as usual for us. The meter is a part of our grid, and it's technical. A lot of people don't really, I mean, it's, when we got assigned to it, we thought, how did we get assigned to this very unsexy project? So it's just not, so don't quote that. So, you know, the reality is, without the Clean Energy Act, we would still be doing this. And we'd be doing this because it's got a strong business case, and it's the right business decision for hydro. And we would be doing it because we need to keep modernizing the grid to support the business initiatives that are happening with it. We also have the authority to do it because, and it's not the Clean Energy Act that actually gives us the authority to do it. It is the Utilities Act, dating back to the 1960s, and it is the tariff. It is actually the condition of service. When you apply for electricity service, one of the terms of that service is that the utility needs to be able to provide the infrastructure to deliver and measure the electricity used by our consumers. And the meter is a part of that. So your point is totally valid, and you know, we're certainly open to looking for other ways to do that. But just by way of understanding, for us it was a business as usual with a strong business case, and it's about upgrading the grid. And so it didn't really seem like it needed the public consultation. Certainly, the public is interested in it. It has become a public issue, I think, partly because the government has put its weight behind it. And so we're very open to, you know, Harper Hadden come out on the road all the time and talk to people, all the way from first responders to Chamber of Commerce to councils to, you know, open houses. So I just wanted to say.
Thank you. Joyce.
I was a lot more.
Go ahead, Mark. Come on up.
Boys in grade 8 than the science of electricity, but I do remember ants and homes. But
You might know more about science electricity than I do.
I know about transmission stations, and I know about transformers, and then I know about meters. But you said the electricity, when you put too much out, it disappears. Where does it go? Like, there's a path, how does it get off the path if you put too much out? I don't understand
The
that.
electrons shed off the wire.
Oh, so they,
Yeah,
oh,
they just shed right off the wire.
okay, that's all.
And then if it flows through your home, it just flows out.
Debbie?
Thanks.
So I'm part of City Hall as a councillor, and I'm one that's getting a lot of the mail, and we're being asked as a council to put a moratorium on, and as you know, down at UBCM there was quite a large gathering of protesters. Their main concern was health, and that I believe it was at the Netherlands and Australia, where there was public outcry so large that the smart meter program was canceled. Can you just comment on the health aspect, please?
So, so the names, Sharon Noble and Lucy Claire, some of those guys, and they were at UBCM. There wasn't that many of them, but when they're talking about the health aspect, they're primarily talking about the radio frequency aspect, which I shared the numbers with. And generally, when we have that conversation with them, they'll go, okay, but our obligation is to comply with Health Canada. And I think part of the conversation at UBCM is what's the jurisdiction at the municipal level, because really you've got the same jurisdiction as we do. You have to comply with federal and provincial statutes, and we fully comply or exceed all of that, right? So I think that was what some of that debate was. Speculating a little bit, these groups that are concerned about health, they are really saying that they don't know, they're uncomfortable with the level that Health Canada is at, which is why I take some great pains to point out that we don't stop at complying with Health Canada. We have gone that much further, and we have designed a system. So here's the kinds of things we've done at BC Hydro to make sure that we are not putting in, to make sure that it's safe. We are doing things like the way we've decided how many times it's sending information. It's going to send information 3 times a day. That reduces the amount of time it's active. It does operate by sending its information to a collector. Other jurisdictions, some of the utilities in Ontario, they've put those collectors on the side of the home. They're still safe. They're still well within the guidelines. But for that home that now has a collector, there's more traffic, there's more activity happening on that home. We chose to not do that. We have chosen to put them up on a post 18 to 24 feet above the ground, where there is no measurable output at that point to anybody's, that's at least 18 feet away. So we've made those kinds of choices. Just the system itself we chose. We chose a mesh-based system. Some of municipalities, a lot of municipalities have got water metering, smart water metering. Victoria has got smart parking meters, and they've made free Wi-Fi downtown. So we're making those kinds of choices all the time. A lot of other metering systems are what we in the industry call automated meter reading or drive-by. We did not choose drive-by because the operating profile of drive-by is quite different. That meter is pinging like every 15 seconds or so and saying, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Waiting for that truck to come by and pick up the reading. We chose to not use that system. We chose to instead go with an automated metering infrastructure program. I know it's an arcane difference, but it means a lot to us. But what that does is it says the meter collects the information and then it wakes up occasionally and sends it. It's not pinging all the time looking for a receiver like cell phones do. It's directional. So we've made a lot of choices, a lot of design choices, a lot of procurement choices to keep that profile low. We're very confident that our metering system is safe. That's just from the radio frequency perspective. Now here's some things, let me share a few more data points. Out here, Ms. Noble, I've talked with her a couple of times. They said, well, why aren't you doing power line carrier, wired? There's this perception, wired good, wireless bad. Not everything is always that simple, right? So power line carrier, this is when you transmit the data on the power line itself. Well, here's the thing, folks, is that actually emits more radio frequency and directly into your home because those wires are in your walls. And it actually needs a stronger signal and it has more output. So it's wired, but it doesn't meet the purpose. If radio frequency is your concern, that's not the option you want to go with. So there's, it's now a number of people's eyes are already going like, oh, that's more technically, which is why we can control the voltage better, it actually creates a better power quality environment in your homes. The power voltage is much more well controlled now, so the risk of dirty electricity is lower. Plus, it has better surge protection on it. So today, if there is a major power surge caused by something happening upstream on the lines, it might flow through the meter into your home and affect some electronic devices in your home. That meter will actually take the hit. So it will melt and switch the power off and protect you from a surge coming into the home. So it's, there's a lot of aspects to that situation.
Good, let's take another question.
So my question is more related to price. You mentioned earlier in your presentation around the two-tier system. And so my family and I made the decision a few years ago to get rid of our ugly furnace and go to electricity because it was a greener fuel.
Yeah.
But now we're getting dinged on the second tier. So just because we heat our home with electricity, we are now paying a higher electrical cost. And my concern for the smart meters, which I think generally speaking actually are probably a good thing, I look forward to being able to monitor my own electricity. But my concern is that sooner or later, they are going to be used to implement more surcharges during peak periods of time, and I'm going to be held even more hostage because that's my only mechanism to heat my home.
Enjoy my time with these rates.
Yeah.
So, as with anything, that's a complicated topic in itself, and there's some times when I wish other jurisdictions had put a bit more thought into these things. Here's what I can say about time of use rates. Time of use rates are a type of denominator which having more granular information can support. It doesn't have to have more granular information. We could implement time of use rates. In fact, even today's meters will have, you could have different seasonal rates, you can have different time of day rates, but they're too broad. So what smart meters do allow is for jurisdictions to design more granular type rates to change different kinds of behavior. There is no legislation, there is no mandate from policy perspective for BC Hydro or any utility in BC to pursue time of use rates, number one. Number two, demand rates like that are utilities use that as a tool when we are capacity constrained. Capacity being the amount of wires that we have as opposed to how many electrons we have. BC does not have a systematic or comprehensive capacity problem right now. We have a localized capacity problem. So there's parts of the province where there's not enough infrastructure to get enough power there. That's why we're building the Northwest Transmission Line, the interior Lower Mainland Line, and that there's a whole group that might be a good group to speak to the chamber at some time, and I can help set that up. But we're doing a lot around capacity. Rates are something that fits in that stack, but quite high up that stack. So it's not something that there's a business driver for or policy driver for really the foreseeable future. But here's something that people maybe don't know. There is actually a lot of people that could benefit from time of use rates. I actually hear more frequently, particularly when we're traveling up north, why don't you ditch the two-tier rate system and pursue time of use rates, because that gives you more control. And so we'll hear, and there's businesses, there's farmers, and there's kinds of groups of people that can benefit from it. So it's complex from that perspective as well. What we're doing is we're hoping, and we continue to sort of think about, well, what if there was sort of voluntary type programs that could be made available in the future? But regardless of whatever happened with rates, that is something that has to go through the commission. So anything that has to go through the commission, would be subject to all of those different points of view coming in to design that way. The key things, it's not policy right now, it's not a business driver for us right now. Ontario has a quite a broad-based time of use rate, but they've got some very serious capacity and supply problems. And so they've used it as quite a strong instrument. California's done a better job of thinking about everything else. So.
All right, any other questions over
I
there?
refer to some more about
Wendy and please.
I have a friend in Ontario who has a smart meter, and he said his bills have doubled since he got it. And most people I know would not be looking forward to that.
Right. So the thing about Ontario, that's probably the time of use rate that's causing that. But a little bit more color on the Ontario situation. They started rolling out their smart meters in the middle of the heat wave. They put unlike BC, they actually applied HST to their electricity bills. And they implemented a company's rate that was quite wide, and they did it all at the same time. So here's a little known fact about Ontario. They actually slowed down and stopped deploying smart meters for a while because of some of the noise that was there. That noise was entirely policy and rate driven. It's not the meter. Now, if you were from California, that would say my meters have gone up. What happens in the States is that they do not maintain their meters. Their existing installed base of meters are quite inaccurate. And so when they get smart meters that are now extremely accurate, they are finding that their bills are going up because they've been under-reporting for a long time. We don't have that problem in Canada because of Measurement Canada. So we have on an annual basis, because of Measurement Canada regulation, we have to go and sample different cohorts of meters. If a single meter in that cohort, that family of meters fails, we are obligated legally to take that entire cohort out of service and replace it with a better functioning meter. And the measurement accuracy for your meter today is 99.2%. And with Smart, Measurement Canada is upgrading that with smart meters to 99.8%. So the meters are extremely accurate, but what you're seeing is other jurisdictions either had an inaccurate base or they've done policy changes. Ontario is almost really all about the tonnage rate that they implement.
We work together. I'm really concerned about the saturation of the radio frequencies, and my concern is mostly that you profess that it's safe when, you know, this is brand new technology that's going to be in our environment at this saturation. So I just don't understand how you can be 100% sure. And, you know, what about employers, right, that have the smart meters on their businesses? Are they liable, you know, if their employees get sick, if they have a sensitivity to the radio frequency?
So there's a number of different things in there. First off, it's not new technology. It's a new application of technologies that have been around
To this
for a long
degree,
time.
I'm saying this saturation that we're going to have it on every home, right?
Well, the meter is tiny. It's tiny. I mean, we showed you that chart, and honestly, we're going to post those sites in the next couple of days. And that is an environment. I mean, it's governed. You can see the background noise. You can see the meter, and it's all tiny. So first off, it's not new technologies. It's just using existing technologies for a new purpose. Right? So it's not something brand new that hasn't been seen. Second, radio frequency, it doesn't accumulate linearly like that. It's not like, and I'm going to say it's not like mercury, you know, where we worry about eating fish that are poisoned with mercury because it collects in your tissues. It's not like that. It's not accumulative. It's a point in time. It is this geospatial spot that I'm standing in right now, how much RF is happening to me right here. And because RF dissipates so quickly, like it exponentially drops, it just doesn't accumulate like that. It's not an accumulative type of situation like that. So there's those aspects. I know that sometimes people go, sure, 1 meter, no problem, but what if I live in an apartment building that's got 30 meters? And now, you know, all that meter adds up. Well, here's the thing. Because it's a mesh network, the meters, the closer the meters, the even less the communication time and the power that they need to communicate. So actually, when you test meters in a meter bank, they peak. As soon as you have 4 or more meters, 400, 200 in one location, they peak at 2 times the strength of a single meter. That's it. And we have actually a testing report done by PlanetWorks that shows that. So they're not cumulative like that. If your question is broader in terms of society's accumulation of this, well, that is where Health Canada comes in, where they have to do their compliance. And one of the fun things about my job has been I've become an expert, or at least more deeply knowledgeable about a lot of different topics, all the way from bees through to radio frequency. But what I've learned with the Health Canada Safety Code 6 is they actually have 2 standards. They have one for an uncontrolled environment like us. We're the public. We're an environment that has a lot of other stuff going on that's uncontrolled. That's the 600 megahertz. They also have a different standard that's a lot higher for a workplace that is dealing with, so major manufacturing facilities will be dealing with a lot of radio frequency, because anything with a motor is giving off RF. So there's different standards in place for those guys, and then now you're starting to have some workplace controls for those kinds of things. The last part about what you're talking about was EMF, or electromagnetic sensitivity disorder, and there's a lot of talk about that. You know, I'm not a health professional, so I can't really speculate about what is or isn't. I'm a utility professional. But what I can tell you from our reading is that Health Canada does not, they've done a lot of blind studies and double-blind studies, and they cannot find any evidence of it as a disorder in its own right. Dr. Blalowick, who we've spent some time with, is a former medical officer from Vancouver, and what he'll tell us is that there are people who exhibit symptoms that is heightened sensitivity to the environment, and so we should all be aware of that, but finding a direct correlation between the electromagnetic sensitivity and what we're experiencing in the world around us, it just isn't there. And you know, those of you that might have heard the panel at UBCM, we asked the question as well, you know, well, what about cigarettes were considered safe for a long time? But here's what the doctors will tell you. If you ask them, they'll say, actually, no. The medical profession started to see evidence of cigarettes being quite unsafe or quite unhealthy early. The studies showed it. It was policy that didn't react to it. But the equivalent, we have 30 years with a body of over 25,000 studies on radio frequency. And there is no pattern. There is nothing like cigarettes or asbestos or these other things that show any kind of. So that's what the doctors tell us.
That will be our last question.
Okay, just real quick, my smart meter was installed on Tuesday. Is there a remaining rollout date for all of them, or does it start to do it, collect its data right away, and when can I expect my in-home feedback tool?
Well, you're going to say, when can I expect my bill to go up?
Yeah. You read my line.
If your bill goes up, you call me.
I have her card. I have her card.
It will not go up.
Make a conference call.
We are rolling out meters. It's a little counterintuitive because you think we roll it out community by community, but we're actually rolling it out by meter reading units, meter reading routes. So it'll be coming through communities over time. The collectors are falling behind. So one lady asked me a question here about her mom is getting some notices on a meter that says not registering. It's because the collector is not here yet. So your meter is collecting its information and storing the hourly information, but it's not transmitting it yet. And we won't be switching to, so meter readers are still manually reading your meter for your bill. And we won't start actually billing off those meters until next spring.
Next spring, so the feedback tool next spring.
So next April, next spring, we will be launching a website, so you'll be able to see your hourly after that. If you want real time, probably more towards the end of 2012 when really the real-time devices is like pairing a Bluetooth with your cell phone. You know, so what we're doing is allowing you to go out and choose your Bluetooths, and then we're making it possible for you to pair whatever you choose with your meter. And so that will be later in 2012 before that will be
Great. Thank you very much. I've determined that it's Harper's job I like. If I have to work with these two, I want her job. Sit there and make sure that the technology works, and that's it.
Now you should see what she does.
I'm sure she's a great right arm. So I want to thank you very much, both you ladies, for coming here to Powell River. She has offered City Council that they want to set up a community forum, that they will come up and talk with our community. So anybody here from that, the offer is there. I have her card. Maybe you can give your card to Debbie left, but Maggie Hathaway as well. So I want to say thank you for that. Before we close up, I want to say Erin Reed, I missed her. She's running again for school trustee, so we got to make sure we vote for her and my brother. And so thank you, Erin, for being here. You're a good supporter of the chamber, and I missed you earlier. Is there any announcements for the floor? On the floor? Laura. Yes, Andy.
Yeah, Councilor D asked me to turn out on behalf of Brain Injury Society, which I'm a board member. They're having their big medieval dinner tomorrow night at the Carlson Club. I think the doors open at 5:30, dinner at 6:30. All the people are going getting dressed up. The tickets are $30 each, and you can get them at Debbie's office. She'll be there all afternoon. So I'm hopeful that people can support this fundraising event for the Brain Injury Society. And if you're unable to go, you might be able to see your way clear to buy a couple of tickets for people that can't afford to go, some of their clients.
Thank you. Yeah, I purchased a table and I will 7 people, or her clients, so they can go, because I'm not into dressing up.
Not into sword fight?
No, I'm not into partying. Alrighty, thank you. Any other announcements on the floor? October the 19th, next week, Wednesday, 5:30, the Chamber is hosting a business mixer right here. So, you know, if you mark that down, Wednesday night, 5:30, come out, and it's just a social networking, refreshments, and happies, and Kim will do a blitz on the email. But RSVP, because there's not enough people, we're not paid for some appies and room and such, so just want to see if there's another venue where people want to come out and just talk about whatever it is they want to talk about or network. So having said that, I'm going to do a draw. Yeah,
We're already at 40.
Mayor.
We're already at 40, we're not canceling.
We're at 40? Wow. Good stuff. Alrighty. Don't we usually have a sort of free lunch thing in here with this? There isn't one.
It's in my hand.
Okay.
You know there's no free lunch here.
Well, there is a chamber. So anyways, I'm going to ask our guest to pick a card.
You're stressing your job nowadays. Yeah.
Leslie, Lisa. Leslie Florcell. And I'm told we have a member here today who joined this morning, the chamber, and came to lunch, and that's Laura Berzin.
Yeah, thanks.
And she's the new lawyer with Girodi and Fleming. Welcome to Powell River. Thank you for finding us. And see Kim, we're going to buy you free lunch next week as well. Or next month, right? Next month, Kim?
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty, and so there are 2 free lunches today. Thank you very much. Go in peace, and God bless you all.